Everyone is constantly looking for other ways, better ways, and more ways to help their inconsistency problem. What I want to do today is to offer you my perspective on why consistency is such a difficult mission for many people, and why discipline, which, as many traders believe, is supposed to be the answer, breaks down and lets you down when you need it most.
You are listening to the Confidence in Trading podcast. I am your host, Agnieszka Wood, a trading mindset coach and a seasoned day trader with over a decade of experience. If you are new to my show, don't forget to subscribe so you can come back for the next episode. In this podcast, we explore the fascinating world of psychology and the human element of trading. We take a deep dive into different perspectives to inspire you and help you navigate the emotional ups and downs of trading with self-compassion and confidence. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, this podcast is your trusted companion, providing support on your trading journey. Get ready to boost your confidence and unlock the secrets to mastering your mindset for success. Welcome to episode 78. Why consistency in trading is so difficult.
Trading is a very demanding occupation, technically, mentally, and psychologically, right? And physiologically, even. And while most people get into trading to make a reliable source of income with that, many of them never really get there. It's really hard to actually make profit with trading. And a lot of people will, instead of making money, they will lose it and get further away from their goal. Because even with the best strategy, without achieving consistency, financial freedom is impossible. The struggle to make consistent profit is real. And if you are new to trading, know that this is not just struggle for new people, but sometimes for people, who have been trading already for 10, 15 years. And because the percentage of people who succeed is pretty low, 90%, maybe even 95% of people will never make it, despite of the industry efforts to help people with all kinds of tools, education. I will show you what the struggle is about and what you can do about this. How many of you have had a trading day where you knew exactly what to do, but still did something else, right? Really knowing what your plan is, but then still somehow, in some mysterious way, you throw your plan out the window and you start doing completely something else. Maybe you even told yourself, like a lot of people would make those promises in the morning. You have your routine and you promise, like, today I will follow it. I'm not going to do this again. I will follow it. And then the market opens, the price is moving fast, you're missing the entry. And then before you know, you're already chasing. And you take a trade, you just jump into it, then it goes slightly against you. Then you get out and something shifts. You start simply feeling differently. You start acting differently. You go off your plan, you oversize, you exit too early, you remove your stop. And later you look back and you think, what just happened? Who was this person who was trading? Does this sound familiar? It's almost like a daily routine, right? You keep repeating the same thing over and over again. Let me ask you something deeper. Do you consider yourself a disciplined person? And not just in trading, but in life in general. Do you consider yourself a pretty disciplined person? You can get things done in your life. So I can imagine that when you are in trading, really struggling with doing just following your plan, which seems to be pretty simple, you must be pretty surprised, like, what is going on here, right? Like, why can't I just simply follow my plan? Why is this such a difficult task? Most traders that I know and that I work with are very ambitious people. They are driven, they are high performing, they high achievers. They are used to taking responsibility. They are used to solving problems, whether it's in their life or career. But in trading, something feels off, and consistency feels impossible. They follow their plan for a while, they build profits, but then the one decision wipes it all out. It's the same trader, even though sometimes it feels like someone else is taking over you, still it is the same trader, but it can be at the same time disciplined and in the same time inconsistent. When those scenarios are happening over and over again, this is where the real damage begins, because it is not even about the loss you're taking, it's the doubt. It's that little voice in your head that comes and say, maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I just need to work harder. Maybe I just simply don't have what it takes. So you start doubting yourself and you start destroying your confidence. And before you know, you start doubting your strategy and you start doubting your every decision. So you are bringing yourself, it's not only really tiring, but it is not good for your trading. You're actually making it worse. Consistency is not an intelligence problem. It's also not a hard work problem, because while you are projecting the failure onto yourself when things go wrong and making yourself feel miserable about it, consistency is a completely different issue. It's a pressure problem. So I want you to understand the mechanism, because once you understand it, the conversation about consistency changes completely. And instead of trying harder and pushing yourself more, you can start focusing on building discipline that actually holds under stress, that holds under pressure. And that will help you to trade with more ease and maybe even with more compassion for yourself. Before trading, I spent years working in high pressure environments, international corporations, working in marketing projects, a lot of deadlines, large budgets, quite high responsibility. And while doing that, I was also running my business. So I was always the person that hustled and worked hard, and because I really loved it, I really thrived in that environment and I could get a lot of things done. So hard work wasn't really new to me. Discipline wasn't new to me. I knew how to achieve goals. I thrived on challenges. And I know that many traders love trading because it's challenging. So when I came to trading, I assumed that I can make it work easily. I was really very arrogant with that because I had no idea what trading involved, but I thought pressure, it's one thing, and discipline, that will definitely not be my issue. But unfortunately, it was, and not for the reasons I expected. Let me introduce you to what I call trading triangle, because this is where most traders get lost. This is a little bit like the Bermuda Triangle of trading. Every single day as a trader, you are operating inside that triangle where you have three forces working their pressure on you all at once. The first one is the market chaos. You are navigating through risky, uncertain, unpredictable environment. There is no control and no guarantees. And we as human beings are not used to that type of environment. Just notice how in life we are always trying to avoid risks, create certainty, security, and stable environment. This is completely different. Second, you are also experiencing internal pressure. You get emotionally activated every time the market moves. You get mental stress, for example, from your losses, from frustrations, from repeating the cycle over and over again, from your expectations. Why am I not where I was supposed to be yet? I should have been much further by now. By expectations to make a lot of money because you have seen all those promotions and commercials, people promising millions, and why you are not making those. So, and plus, on top of that, you get physiological response where, because of all the stress, your body is reacting to that stress. So you might not only have, fatigue because you don't sleep well, but you might also have other stress symptoms, because when money is involved, your nervous system will react to it. And the third one is the freedom of choice. And this is really about decision pressure. You are surrounded by unlimited choices, the strategies, the tools, opinions, and you have to pick. You have to make the choice. And you are the one who is carrying the full responsibility for every single choice you make. So that creates a cognitive overload. And you might think freedom is the thing I got into trading for, right? It can be empowering, but very seldom traders can actually handle that kind of freedom. Just think about it. When you get into trading, you actually get the freedom you want. You have the freedom of time, you have the freedom of choice, you have all the independence to make your own decisions. And unfortunately, most traders cannot handle that freedom, and they create chaos by not being able to follow their plan. You have the freedom to choose the trade, to choose when you come in, when you take the trade, when you get out. It's you that has the freedom to make all the choices. Most people cannot handle that freedom, and they make even more chaos out of it. The reality is you have full responsibility for your decisions. There's no boss, no team, no one to blame. And this is the kind of freedom that really creates a lot of pressure. So here you are in the triangle, trying to stay calm in chaos, trying to manage internal stress, and trying to choose the right strategy, the perfect entry, and trying to discipline yourself to execute perfectly with no mistakes. Just notice your own perception of mistakes. Like, how do you approach your mistakes? Because that is one of the things that most people have not learned, that mistakes are a good thing. Mistakes is data that is bringing you forward on your journey and not something to punish yourself for. And this is also part of the discipline that most people have learned. You should not make mistakes. You have learned that by making mistakes. For example, at school, you are getting lower grades. So automatically you are getting punished for making mistakes. So you're trying to avoid them. In trading, you should not be avoiding mistakes, because you should accept that mistakes will happen. And your job as a trader is to increase the probability of making the right decision. So it's a completely different approach. The key thing to understand is that those forces, they will never go away. Like, they are not temporary. These are your working conditions. They're not going anywhere. So you have the choice. You can either keep fighting them or find a way to adapt and to learn how to adjust and how to perform in those conditions. The problem with it is, as human beings, we are wired for action, for control, for urgency, and survival. So what happens is, when you are under so much pressure, you are naturally feeling the discomfort, and your system tries to get out of it as soon as possible. So that's why you start overriding your plan, you start forcing your trades, you hesitate, and you start being reactive instead of rationally choosing your response. It's not because you can't do it because you're weak. It's because simply you are operating from a survival, and action, whatever action, just simply action, feels like control. So here's the interesting part. Most traders don't struggle because they lack intelligence. And it is also usually not because their strategy is broken or not working. They struggle because trading is this very different environment, and it rewards a completely different operating system, different from how we operate in life. The operating system that we are operating from in our daily life, how we achieve success in our career, is incompatible with how the market operates, because we are not wired for probabilities. We are wired for certainty and control. In life, speed is rewarded. You got to respond quickly. You have to make decisions fast. Don't hesitate. Effort is rewarded. Just work longer, push harder, outwork the competition. Control is rewarded. You got to manage the situation, just fix the problem, and certainty is rewarded. You have to have the answer. You have to be confident. You have to minimize doubt. You have to go for certainty. And that's how careers are built. This is how most of us have learned to succeed. This is a conditioning that most people have grew up with, at least in a certain age bracket. If you're like 20, you might have a completely different upbringing, but I'm talking about a bracket of like when you are around 40 and up, maybe even 35 and up, because I see that like my students who are 35, they still really resonate with this. Trading, on the other hand, rewards something very different. It rewards patience, watching the price move without reacting, letting a setup form instead of forcing one, and sitting on your hands when there is nothing to do. It also rewards restraint, not to take the trade, not adding to the position, not chasing the breakout, not revenge trading after the loss. Really restrain yourself from taking action. It requires you to tolerate uncertainty. Basically, you have to be willing and able to enter a trade, which means accepting that you might lose, accepting that you can do everything right and still be wrong. And that's very hard for many people, the need to be right. And even though you do everything right, you might still turn out to be wrong. And making decisions with incomplete information. It does not reward speed, it rewards patience, no effort but restraint, no control but acceptance of limited control, and not certainty but tolerance of uncertainty. And that's the conflict. Because, as I mentioned, we are not wired for probabilities, we are wired to reduce uncertainty. Trading asks you to sit inside that uncertainty without trying to fix it. And that's very hard for many people. And then when you add money to this uncertainty, this is where anxiety shows up. So now you are already in this high pressure environment. Now you are adding more pressure. Now you're adding a loss, a volatile market, a missed entry. The day isn't going your way. So you add more pressure into your day. A lot of times what you will see is that in life, especially for people who are high achievers, pressure often sharpens performance. In trading, on the other hand, pressure actually shifts your internal state. And that's when you start making changes to your decision making. You don't rise to your best intentions. You default always to your most familiar patterns. And this is where discipline appears to break. So your strategy might be fine, but it only works if you execute it consistently. And this is exactly where the hardest part is when pressure rises. When you lose control under pressure, conclusion is, I just need more discipline, more control. I need to push, I need to work harder, I need to push harder. I need to control my emotions. I just need to be more disciplined. And this is a very logical conclusion because this is exactly how we solve problems in our daily life. But this is incomplete. Let me ask you, do you consider yourself someone who performs best under pressure? Do you ever procrastinate? I personally believe I was great under pressure because I built my entire career on that. I thought that this was actually discipline, but I was wrong. This is not how discipline feels like. This was adrenaline. So let me explain. Adrenaline-based discipline is when the urgency replaces regulation. So you feel focused and you are able to get something done, but only because the threat response is active. But then without pressure, your motivation drops, you procrastinate. With pressure, your focus narrows, your range of choices narrows too. And all you do is like, now you don't have that many choices, so you just act. And this is what happens when people go on tilt. They just act. While your focus increases, but your choices narrow, the pressure becomes the condition for you required to perform. So just think about this. Like when you have a major loss, how many times were you actually able, despite the loss, you were able to work your way back into profit? And then you were happy, yeah, but I ended up stay with profit. But how much did that cost you? How often, when there is nothing happening in the market, you sit there, you watch the charts, and then you start feeling restless. And then there's nothing to trade, and you start clicking the buy and sell buttons. So there is no pressure. There's nothing to do. You just have to wait for your setup. And maybe it won't come, you don't know. But then you start taking random trades. This is when pressure becomes the condition for you to perform. And here's the paradox, because most traders believe pressure is the problem. And they think, if I could just handle pressure better, I could be consistent. But for many traders, pressure isn't the problem. Pressure is the fuel, because under pressure, they start working hard and they become more focused. They can grind, they can recover the loss, they can perform. Now, the problem starts when the conditions are calm, and this is what starts to expose the problem. Slow markets, no urgency, and that's where you become restless, and that's where you start overtrading. That's where you start stretching the rules. And many traders live this pattern every single day without even realizing it. Inconsistency isn't a discipline problem, it's a nervous system survival strategy. And most traders I work with are not undisciplined, as I mentioned, in their private life. They are disciplined, but they are adrenaline driven. They have learned to function at their best when the urgency is present. They perform well under pressure. They procrastinate until there is urgency. They break rules when emotions spike, and then the intention to follow the plan is absolutely there. The intentions and goodwill is not an issue. The state is the issue. Because when the pressure rises, access to those regulated decisions just drops. And then when you become calm again, you don't know how to operate without urgency. So it's not like it's a character flaw, it's just a conditioning. This is really incredibly important, because this is exactly what keeps many traders from having the freedom that they say they want. How many times did you know you should have walked away from your desk and you did it? Even if you hit your daily goal, maybe you have made more in 20 minutes than you were making in your regular job. And why? Because calm feels uncomfortable, because doing nothing doesn't feel productive. And if you would just walk away after 20 minutes, it would feel like you didn't really deserve the money, like you need to work harder for it, because without pressure, your system doesn't know how to settle. So for most people, trading is supposed to be the path to more freedom, more time, less pressure. But internally, most traders recreate pressure because pressure feels familiar. So they can't step away. It's not because you are greedy. It is not because you lack discipline or structure. It's because your nervous system equates action with value. So it doesn't allow you to step away. And that's a very different problem than most people think. And when you look at it through this lens, you realize that it isn't about good or bad decision. It's about which internal state is driving you, because your system doesn't operate randomly. It operates from state. And there are two primary operating states that matter in trading. There is a survival state and there's a regulated state. So in a survival state, the goal is relief and control. In a regulated state, the goal is strategic execution. So when pressure rises, we don't rise to our best intentions, but we default to our most familiar state. And for many high-performing traders, that state is survival. Your action becomes automatic. Doing something feels like you're being in control. That's why you just start taking random actions. And then the short-term relief relief of that discomfort drive your decisions. And it can feel very productive and powerful at the moment, but it's quietly destroying your long-term consistency. Now, here is where it gets interesting. Many traders try to solve this problem by reaching for regulation tools at the moment when this pressure spikes. So they try to breathe, they try to meditate, they try to journal. And I'm not discrediting those tools. I think they're absolutely helpful and I teach them too for a reason. But here is what often gets misunderstood. Tools support regulation, but they don't instantly override your survival response. If your system is already fully activated, breathing won't magically restore full access to your choices. Regulation is something that you need to build and maintain. It is not something you switch on at will in the middle of emotional escalation. Just think about it. It's a little bit like you would try to build fitness in the middle of a sprint. You can't. You have to build it before. You have to build it in training. And this applies also to trading. And maybe you have already noticed that in your own trading that when you go on tilt, you don't have a moment to pause and think, yes, this is a perfect moment to take 5 slow, deep breaths, right? When you're on tilt, action is automatic. You're already in motion. Your attention has narrowed. You're not thinking long term. It's too late. Your system is looking for relief in the moment and control. That's what survival does. And in that state, even if you know breathing would help, your access to the choice is reduced, not because you are incapable, but because your system has shifted priorities. And that's why a lot of times tools feel like they don't work. It's not because they are not working, but because they are meant to be used strategically and not reactively. And this is what a lot of traders are using them for as coping mechanism in the moment, and then they are not working. Some of you might be wondering, so does that mean I should not focus on breathing while trading, or should I not be journaling? Those are really good questions. And let me be clear about this. If something is working for you, don't stop doing it. And yes, you should be doing that. But understand this, tools don't fix the problem on their own. They are much less effective when you use to force yourself into a different state or to eliminate discomfort, because then the tool itself, and maybe you have noticed that already, it becomes another source of pressure. I have to meditate so I can trade better. Or mentor said, I have to journal so I can stop doing this. And just notice how you feel about the journaling, meditating, or using any other tools like doing breathing. How do you feel about those tools? Just notice the tone of that. And notice how does it feel in your body when you even say it? I know I have to journal. Does this feel spacious, relieving, or is it tight? Does it feel supported? Or does it feel demanding, like another thing I need to do? Because tools should never be another thing that you're supposed to get right, because it stops being regulation and then it becomes performance. So you're adding extra pressure, and before you know, you are exactly in the same loop again of performing under pressure. The moment that it happens is you are not actually calming your nervous system, you are evaluating it. You are trying to fix yourself as if there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And that subtle shift really matters, because pressure doesn't only come from the market, it comes from your internal dialogue, from how you treat yourself. And now the tool becomes another requirement, another metric, another standard that you are failing or succeeding at. And that's still survival mode. I wish I had understood this whole dynamic much earlier, because for years I did not realize that I was operating mostly entirely from survival mode. I was very proud of how well I performed under pressure, but I didn't realize that I was creating pressure. I was recreating it just to feel focused and motivated and feel good about myself. Because I have learned that urgency meant productivity, that effort meant value, and that it said something about me and my worthiness. And that's the only thing that was making me fulfilled. Pushing harder meant progress. And then when things were calm, I just didn't feel productive. So I kept myself busy, always busy. And when I wasn't productive, when I wasn't doing things, it felt incredibly uncomfortable. Training was really the first environment that exposed my inability to operate calmly and consistently without urgency and feel good about myself. So here's something to consider. Pressure narrows your choices so much that discipline isn't required. Action just is unavoidable. When pressure disappears, though, this is where real discipline becomes necessary. And that's where most traders fall apart. Not because they lack discipline, but because they have never learned to operate without adrenaline. And that's where it gets tricky because a lot of people don't realize, like I haven't before, that they are operating from that state. So when consistency breaks, instead of not pushing themselves harder, they start pushing harder. They start forcing themselves. They tell themselves, tomorrow I'm going to be more disciplined. I'm going to add more rules. No more trading after 11, max 2 trades. If I break a rule, I shut the platform. They tightened control. They watch every single tick more closely. They sit longer. They start watching more YouTube videos, spend more time. They work harder, double check everything. And then they scold themselves. What's wrong with me? I know better than this. I can't keep doing this. And that raises the stake even more. If I mess up again, I'm done. I need to make this money back. I cannot afford another mistake. The crazy part is all these kind of things makes you feel responsible, like feels like accountability. It feels like you're finally taking it seriously as if you haven't before. But internally, you just increased the pressure. And that's a problem because when you are already in a survival mode, forcing discipline doesn't create stability, it creates more pressure. And under pressure, the system no longer asks, what's the right decision? It's ask you, what will give me relief right now? And this is where you force trades, you oversize, remove stops, exit early, stay too long over trading. Knowing what to do no longer matters. You know exactly what to do, but it doesn't matter because your access to regulation has dropped and the cycle repeats. So let me simplify this. Pressure creates survival. Then survival drives action because you need the relief. Now, relief feels like control, but it's only short term because the action that you take to create that relief is often impulsive. So while it may calm you in the moment, it creates long-term damage. And damage creates more pressure. And you're stuck in that loop. And you go over and over again with that. And trying harder only fuels the loop. Most traders live inside it for years. You make money, then you mess things up, then you give it all back. If pressure is the only state where your system knows how to function, your system is recreating the pressure. It's like self-fulfilling prophecy. And what looks like self-sabotage that you beat yourself up about is often a survival response on repeat. So once you see this, the conversation really changes. It's no longer, how do I force myself to be more disciplined? It becomes, what needs to change so discipline remains accessible for you under pressure? And I hope that now you can see that the discipline isn't really about the effort. It's about the state that you are in. Discipline doesn't fail because you are weak. It fails because pressure changes the system, applying it. Change the system. This is what I do in work with traders. I don't start by adding more rules or tools. I start by changing the conditions under which discipline operates. Remember this, that discipline doesn't fail because you are weak. Don't project it on yourself. Just start changing the system where consistency becomes not only possible for you, but also much easier to sustain. And not because you will try harder, but because you will finally stop fighting yourself. And your trading becomes more of a process. And that's a real shift. And this is what allows discipline to become stable.
Thank you for listening to the Confidence in Trading podcast. If you are enjoying my show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tell me what you like about it. Thanks to you, more traders will be able to find me, and together we'll make a bigger impact. So thank you so much. If you are new to my show, don't forget to subscribe so you can come back for the next episode. And make sure to also check some of the previous shows. Thank you again for tuning in. This is Agnieszka Wood from Ahead Coach. Bye for now.